Hey associates, this mini lecture is actually going to be a recut and update of an older video I had made about my experiences kind of connecting, networking, and understanding, communicating with people at work. Before becoming a professor full-time, I did work in what we call more of that administrative or like industry sides in offices, doing 8 to 5 kind of work with those types of tasks and responsibilities. So what I've done today is recut an old video that I had made on the topic, and I will be popping in with current me to share kind of some additional experiences, some differences, and some new sort of things that I've learned as I've continued my journey of climbing various career ladders and connecting with new sorts of people in my job. I'm excited, and let's hop into it.
Well, a lot of emphasis is on, hey, you went to a networking event. You need to be ready. Like, honestly, I never went to networking events sort of in that formal fashion, but I have used my elevator pitch just constantly. I use it constantly because I'm always meeting new people in my job, both internal and external. And so the main things that I think about with elevator pitches, at least in my experience so far, it's important just to have a few sentences containing your key identifiers, right? It's things like tell people your name, your title, especially, and the projects that you think are going to resonate with that person or the group.
All right, my elevator pitch still holds those same kind of tenets and things that I needed in my past job, but of course it looks just a little bit different now. I actually recently had to give my pitch a lot because we were going through a hiring process in the department, and I got to be on the search committee. And so with every single interview and candidate person we spoke to, I needed to give a pitch. It also meant that I went to dinners with a lot of these people, but also folks from different departments across campus that have connections, right, with our department, people that I definitely needed and wanted to make an impression on. In this situation, they knew I was part of the technical communication info design department, and so kind of expanding slash swapping that out with how long I'd been in the role and the types of classes that I teach, and then still kind of coming up with a key project. So as an example of really what I was saying to all of these individuals. Something like, hi, I'm Haley Blackburn, she, her. I'm one of the newest members in our department. Yeah, I've been here since 2022, and I primarily teach our intro to tech writing courses as well as our special topics. I especially love teaching and talking about social technologies, AI, and what that's going to mean for our field, helping students understand and myself how to use it ethically and as a high quality tool rather than a replacement. I also teach and am developing some additional special topics like intercultural communication and various design options. I look forward to meeting you, and I definitely want to talk about content production, AI, a lot of these new tools and techniques. Kind of wrapped up into that, nice, quick, straightforward, but they understand sort of me, how long I've been here, my position, and what I really want to talk about, things that I am especially interested in, projects to be brought in on.
Well, it's really important to keep building those relationships because based on, the source that you're reading, traditional polls or articles reflect that a majority of professionals, say that networking helped progress their careers forward. Having those really positive associations with the people and kind of building up that reputation and rapport is you'll be really helpful as you look higher and higher into your career ladder. For me, like I was actually recently asked to lead a committee that I'm really excited about. It's really important for my career progression to have this opportunity and added to my resume as well as just getting the skills and experiences.
Back again, wanted to give an update. So yes, doing that kind of networking and connection did get me on that committee, which was exciting. And actually then my work on that committee directly led into a full job title kind of career step up for me. And so since kind of talking about that, making that, I actually was able to use that experience to be hired through what we call an internal kind of process while the search was open. I I, applied. Everybody on the committee kind of knew, right, the work I had done, and it did make it actually a very smooth transition. And so when I think a lot of these folks are saying, yes, kind of networking the connections inside my company helped me get a new job, it's because the company was ultimately hiring internally and looking to promote, somebody that they already knew had those skills and that background. And so, yes, I then took that and became basically the head of professional development for that advising network. So kind of this side committee project I was working on turned into an actual new job that also, came with, a different salary, a little bit of that increase in my whole day to day.
So think about what opportunities would be good for you. And once you figure out those types of experiences and opportunities, then you can start to think about who and how, right, to connect with to increase your chances of you getting those types of opportunities. Now, for email, remember you're just the foundations of technical communication, right? People are reading because they have to, not because they want to. So do all of your coworkers a favor, keep your emails and texts focused and just really well designed, right? It also helps to be that person that sends really clear, purposeful emails, letting the recipient know exactly why they need to read it and what action you need them to take. And so just as that quick review of like what I find helpful in emails, because I receive so many emails every day. Like, really, email, I send and receive them all the time. Way more than people like call me or I call other people. And so, whenever I get an email, and it's not very focused and it's too long, it's rambly, or it doesn't have good design. So, thinking about how are you breaking up your paragraphs? Are you using bullet points? Are you using bold? Do you have italics? Like, how does the page, how am I supposed to read it and move forward? As well as if it's missing like that call to action. Those are the things that annoy me, and I don't like working with those people because it just isn't very clear or efficient for us to get things done when their emails aren't focused, difficult to read, don't have a call to action. Texting and IM, so it's things like don't be the person blowing up, right, the chat needlessly. You don't have to respond to every single thing someone says. Respond when you need to respond and respond when you actually have something that you can contribute to the conversation. So, for example, if someone asks a question that doesn't apply to you or you can't help them with, like, you don't need to send a message saying, oh, you can't help. Like, your non response to their question will imply that without prompting, the ding on everyone's computer. As always with technical communication, again, like consider your audience, right? Your group chat might have people from a range of backgrounds, so be mindful about your memes and the gifts that you send. Like, I definitely still send them in the group chat, but it's on like very specific and intentional instances, and I definitely really think about the context of that gif and obviously the content of it and putting a little bit more thought into how it might be received. And so I tend to just stick with, very overtly sort of friendly and not snarky memes and gifs. Want to be mindful about that. I also use the message interactions a lot. And so the most common one is, the like button. We use this all the time in the chat, really just to acknowledge the significance of a post. And I continue to think about, okay, like who am I interacting with? And do they like need that? Am I liking everyone's post? Because that's like, don't be that person either. And so use it to really acknowledge some sort of significance there. Sometimes people use the sad face or the laughing face when it's like actual meaningful for them. And on very rare occasions, we do use the heart emoji. I tend to only use the heart though when somebody mentions me and like work that I've done. So it's kind of like acknowledging praise, honestly, is where I find like the heart button to be helpful for me. Now, especially right now, remote meetings are very much a must do, right? And they're mostly the same, I'd say, as any other meetings, with just a few kind of tweaks that I've noticed. And so just have everything ready a couple minutes before. If you're the host of the meeting, then obviously like have that ready and open so other people can log in. But if you're waiting for somebody to like let you in, if you're in the virtual waiting room, like be ready a minute or two beforehand, so that way the meeting can start right on time. And that's really the biggest thing I've noticed. Like, just like in class, right? If class starts at 9 o'clock, you can roll in at 8:59, sit down, and then class pretty much starts 9:01. In meetings, I found maybe it's because I work in higher ed, so we're still on that like time thing. But yeah, if the meeting's at 10, like people start the meeting at 10, whether you're there or not. So just make sure you get there on time and you're ready. Second, check your background and avoid backlighting, right? So like right now, obviously we're all working from home. So it's just important. I just have like a plain kind of white background.
This initial conversation was filmed during the height of kind of remote pandemic, and so now that we are kind of coming through it, new normal, a hybrid or virtual, or having some people virtual meetings here to stay, definitely also for job interviews. Since that actually all of my interviews, including the interviews for my current role as a professor here, were all done virtually. And so kind of these tenets, these aspects of virtual meetings have not gone away, and I really don't think they ever will, especially for the hiring process. It's just so much more efficient, and we're able to meet with so many more people when we do it virtually instead of coming in for physical interviews, at least for the first round. And so some little updates that are more and more important now that we're all kind of up to this new expectation, I would say, is your background and your framing. So before, we were all very, I think, understanding of we're in transition. People were, zooming in, meeting in from like living rooms, or you just see lots of things in the background. And if that's, you work with what you got. So if you don't have a nice dedicated space where you can really like curate a good background, at least have just kind of a nice plain sort of wall, maybe a nice little like photo or something, artwork, something like that in the background is nice. Otherwise, just go with the blankest wall that you can with the best lighting possible. But it does feel like, the expectation has risen, right? We've all kind of been around. For me, now that I am a couple, career moves up, same with my spouse, we have the privilege for some dedicated office spaces. And so as we were going through this home, setting up our offices, I did have the opportunity to actually set up what do I want my background, kind of my framing to be, both for these videos, but it also applies for my webcam that is set up at my station. And so kind of through this background, I basically curated all of these pieces to communicate something. So when I am in a video meeting, they do learn a little bit about me, have something kind of nice, but hopefully not distracting to look at, and it helps me understand, the framing. I know that I just need to stand right about my on-air, my on-air thing, and I will always kind of be in a nice, good center frame element. And then, spark some conversations. People have asked, hey, is that, a little Pokemon 3D printed here? And I've gone to, build connections, talk about that. This photo, my grandmother actually painted, and so I also just like looking at it because it, reminds me of some of that personal connection. And again, if somebody asks about it, I have something relatable, personable to say. And then all the plants, just because I like plants, they're beautiful, they're pretty, again, good conversation starter. As well as communicating, like, I am able to keep all of these plants, alive, healthy, thriving, and you can kind of decide what that means from that interpersonal, nonverbal communication standpoint. And then some, reading materials and things down here that people don't necessarily see as much unless I am at my seated desk position. And so with your background and framing, think about, are you going to be standing in frame? What do people see? Are you going to be sitting in frame? What do people see? And when you have the opportunity to really curate that space, think about what each piece means to you, what it says about you, your history, your personality, and what could be conversation sparkers. During the interview process, well, of course, I didn't negatively judge anyone for just having very plain or random backgrounds, and negative. It wasn't like a con necessarily, but the people that had really nice thought out, curated backgrounds, it definitely stood out and it did communicate something more positive. So when you are able to do it, spend a little bit of time thinking about what is in the frame of your video for meetings and for interviews so you can just stand out in a positive way from, the other people that you are competing against.
And then kind of the last thing I would just like I found to be really helpful that sometimes maybe doesn't get used as often is like leverage your socials, right? And so I know like there's a lot of conversation sometimes about like, you obviously need to be digital savvy and like think about what you're posting and set things to private because yeah, your employer literally might look you up. But I found like leveraging my socials also means like creating maybe even like a more professional account. And like I personally don't have a second Instagram account because I just don't really like to post that many personal things or anything like that.
And that is actually one change that I've made. While my personal social media absolutely still my focus on reflecting my professional personal brand. I did in the year since recording this, actually this year very recently, opened a second Instagram account in higher ed where I really focus on right now my experience being new, faculty in higher ed, as well as a place to kind of promote and host and just talk about a podcast that I got through connecting at work, networking through my elevator pitch, of my research that was on podcast cultures. All that came together, and a colleague, Dr. Grant Clayton, was really interested. Said, I've always wanted to do this podcast. Sounds like you're the person to collaborate with to actually make it happen. And so we launched that in February 2024. The Inspired in Higher Ed podcast. So yeah, also be aware that your goals, your dreams, the things that you want to do will evolve as your career evolves, as you meet people along the way that inspire and help you evolve as well. So that is definitely a change. But I now, did lock my personal account down to private and post all of my, kind of professional in higher ed stuff to my new in higher ed Instagram account. I also, have two separate like YouTube accounts, right? One for just all my personal browsing history, like my just, YouTube presence and algorithm, and then my professional YouTube that is where all of these videos are hosted, and then that algorithm is also now very focused on all my professional industry type videos. So leveraging it in that way can be helpful, so that way you get content fed to you that is relevant to your personal interest sides, and then things that are relevant to your professional interests and sides, even if you're not posting. Having those two distinct algorithms can definitely be a great use of the tools and what you're being fed, and keep a little separation of your life and then what you do for work. And my LinkedIn still holding strong, being what LinkedIn, does. And so yeah, just kind of consider again with your social media. I like all the advice that I gave my old self. I still follow it, but I did make some of those updates and decided it was time to launch an entirely separate thing, because now I have new, entirely separate professional goals as well.
But I would definitely just recommend like think about how you can brand yourself for the job that you want and to be in line with that. And when you are posting with career goals in mind, like tag strategically. Like, tag using hashtags or actually tagging these industry related accounts or your company if it's something that you want, somebody to notice that you're up to and that you're doing and that you're adding all this value, in your free time.
All right. Well, this has been fun for me revisiting some of this old advice that I had, sort of for myself as I was working up through those more, office-based environments. So much of it still holds true as my career has evolved, and so many of these things, and my taking my own advice did lead to career outcomes that I wanted. Of course, you need to adapt, evolve, keep your career outcomes in mind while thinking about some of these baselines for networking, connecting, communicating with the people, expanding your network of the folks around you, and just always kind of making that impression that you want. Hopefully the impression you want is a good one, a productive one, a high quality, great person to be around that really contributes, but you decide, right? What is your kind of personal brand? What is it that you want people to associate with you at work? And the way that you connect with them during meetings, phone calls, virtual settings, all of that absolutely contributes to your professional brand and the way people interpret you at work. All right, this has been really fun for me. Think about all of those elements for yourself. Thank you, associates. Vibes.